One night in the town of Jinja, Uganda, a woman was kicked out of her home to be on the streets. She was kicked out by her parents because she'd become pregnant from being sold into prostitution by her parents. She had nowhere to go and had a baby in her stomach. She was hopeless. This summer, I went to Jinja and met this woman. As she shared her story with me, I realized how big of a problem sex trafficking is in Uganda. Sex trafficking is a huge problem in third world countries. And as people become more desperate for an income, selling oneself becomes more appealing to women, children, and even men. Sex trafficking is a huge problem in Uganda that needs to be stopped. This unsound practice impacts one's protection from abuse, their privacy, and their inner value of themselves. Therefore, Uganda needs to end the influx of prostitution. In order to understand why Uganda should stop this, we must first see what the problem is. Sex trafficking is a problem that currently plagues the country of Uganda and has for some time now. Although Uganda has made efforts to decrease its presence, prostitution has only decreased a small amount. In an article written by Agnes Igoye entitled Countering Human Trafficking in Uganda, she states, statistically, Uganda is witnessing a decline in reported cases of human trafficking. According to the National Prevention of Trafficking Persons Office, there were 837 cases in 2013 and 293 in 2014. But these statistics are not cause for celebration, because to us in Uganda, even one victim is too many. As you can see, progress has been made, but it is not enough. In the article, Human Trafficking, on the Kujiliana Coalition page, it states, as a result of the trafficking experience, victims exhibit signs of physical, sexual, and psychological trauma and difficulties in reintegration once they escape the trafficking situation. Selling yourself or others into sex trafficking has costly effects to the safety and welfare of the victim. The majority of these women, a part of the ministry, had been sold into sex trafficking and experienced the repercussions from the family and society. Sex trafficking is a sad and hopeless way of life that has become a huge way of making an income in Uganda. Now that we have seen the problems associated with sex trafficking and prostitution in Uganda, we must look at how these problems came about. The causes of sex trafficking in Uganda can basically be summed up in two reasons: poverty and the low status of women. I'll be addressing the gender disquality in Uganda because I experienced this firsthand while there. Many women in Uganda who have been abandoned by their primary provider tend to go to great lengths in order to provide for their family. While I was in Uganda, hearing these stories of women gave me such respect for their depth of sacrifice. In the essay called From Human Trafficking by Oguli Umo, it writes, the low status of women, girls in the family, and in community has contributed to trafficking and exploitation of women and girls. Local customs and values, which put emphasis on male power, have given legitimacy to manipulation of social practices. For example, women cannot inherit land. In this quote, she is explaining the ideal that women have no power in Uganda. Males have all the power and are able to make a steady income for their family, while women have to fall into degrading acts to earn an income. The causes of sex trafficking can be narrowed down to poverty and women lacking power. These scenarios lead to Ugandans seeking to provide for their family within any means possible ideal. Since we now have addressed the problem and how it was created, we can now begin to talk about how to fix it. Uganda has made many efforts to slow the rate of sex trafficking, but it is not enough. At this point, the majority of the world knows what is happening in Uganda from information being spread through shows, books, articles, etc. We as Americans can only intervene so much without upsetting or offending those participating in sex trafficking. In order to be culturally respectful, our only act we should do is exactly what I did all summer. We need to educate the women on their options and try to reach as many as possible. On the Heal Ministries website, they give the perfect way to actually make change without stomping through the government and making laws. The website writes, Heal Ministries builds relationships and implements Christ-centered programs addressing the spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being of abandoned women and children. We desire for vulnerable families to become holistically transformed and empowered to stay together and live sustainably with their communities. If we actually address the emotional well-being of these women affected by sex trafficking and show them how they can turn their lives around, that will do so much more in the long run. It may take longer, but it will create the most change. Another website with the article entitled Trafficking and Enslavement in Uganda, it states, support skill-building programs, children's rights and responsibilities, and life skills programs. By just showing support and other options to these women, other than participating in sex trafficking, it shows them how they can get out of it. While we have addressed the extent, causes, and ways to end sex trafficking in Uganda, we also have to consider why this has been going on for so long and why we have not already been intervening. Looking at Uganda from America, we see extreme poverty and immediately want to insert ourselves. We as Americans may think we are helping the situation, but a lot of the times, the horrible things we see are just their way of life in Uganda. They are used to these ways of living in which they earn their income from unwholesome acts. To Ugandans, making ends meet with sex trafficking is okay as long as they are providing for their family. So yes, it is a horrible way of life that is sad and degrading to us. Their culture does not condemn it so harshly. I believe we should be proactive with helping to change certain aspects of sex trafficking, but we need to respect the situation and realize it is within their culture. My goal in this paragraph is to give my audience the opposing view so that they understand that we cannot intervene on something we don't entirely understand. The best thing to do, as I stated above, to love these women and show them their options. That woman who was hopeless with a baby in her stomach is now a fully employed potter at the ministry I was a part of. She had a baby and he is the biggest blessing in her life. She lives in a house with running water and she has hope once again. She was taught how to start her business from one of the programs at the ministry and she is now completely self-sufficient and able to escape sex trafficking. These are the success stories I saw in Uganda that showed me there can be change through sensitive action. Sex trafficking is a huge problem in Uganda that must be stopped. With its large scope and detrimental consequences, this practice stemming from poverty and cultural customs needs to end. In conclusion, sex trafficking is a sad and hopeless way of life that can be stopped with our help. After all, if we don't find a way to combat this horror, who will?